Greetings, peoples of the interwebs. Jake here, and normally this is the part where I'd introduce my co-host Dave and Jordan for this review on the Daredevil series, but neither Dave or Jordan have finished it yet. So instead, joining me is good friend to the Pasty Pale channel, Reverend Spaceman, who has actually watched the complete 13 episodes of season 1 of Daredevil.
Yeah, I'm apparently the only one who also has Netflix.
Well, I think Jordan's got it too, but like since I think he might still have school, or maybe he's graduated. I don't know, but yeah, so he doesn't always have the chance to like get caught up with shows. And Dave doesn't have Netflix, so it's usually like whenever he comes over, that's when I get him caught up in all the Netflix shows.
Yeah, why does he not have Netflix?
I don't know.
Every time we tell him, he's like, "I'll get on that someday."
I know. So hopefully one of these days he'll actually have Netflix and we can like stay a lot more current. Because I know a lot of people who are probably reading whatever I title this video, like Daredevil review, you're like, "What the hell, man? Daredevil's been out for like 2-3 months."
Yeah. People are already gearing up for Jessica Jones.
Yeah. But you know, like I said, co-host Dave and Jordan, they haven't gotten caught up, and I just recently had the chance to like get caught up because originally the three of us were gonna watch it and review it, but you know, scheduling and just them not all being able to watch it, I decided to make the selfish decision for the channel, and I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and watch all of it, and I pretty much did, like episode 3 to 13, today. Like I just got done watching the last episode about an hour ago. So it's still very fresh in my mind, so I say we dive right into this.
Alright, and see, I've got the other viewpoint of having processed it for a while, so it evens out. Plus, we get the chance to talk about Dave and Jordan behind their backs.
Yeah, exactly. Those douchebags.
Yeah,
what do they even contribute to this channel? Aside
Words
from
out of their mouths.
Yeah, that's it.
And we can do that.
Yeah, that we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And for those of you who haven't been following the channel, Pasty Pale Productions, Reverend Spaceman, our good friend, has a YouTube channel of his own, so feel free to check that out, give him some love, subscribe and like and all that stuff. Anyways, on with the actual review. So, I'd say, like, there aren't a whole lot of, like, negatives I can say about this show. I don't know about...
Yeah, really. That's probably why this is going to be probably a pretty short one. Because it's easier to talk about things you don't like.
Yeah. So I guess, like, one of the sort of negative... Like, not even, like, that big a deal, but, like, I know Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Kingpin, like, there were some moments, mostly, like, when his character's first introduced, I feel like he was kind of trying to figure out, like, how to carry his character. Because, like, his voice at the beginning was kind of, like, just kind of gruff. He's just kind of like, okay, so I'm the main villain, so I'm gonna talk kind of like this. A sort of deeper, gruffier voice. Yeah, like a kind of sort of Batman-esque voice, like, of his own voice. So that kind of, like, threw me off just a tad bit, like, when I first started watching the show. So I don't think he really came into, like, had much screen time until, like, episode 4. Like, 3 or 4. So I was kind of like, okay, so I know a lot of people are, like, ranting and raving about Daredevil. I'm not saying this show's gonna be bad, but if that's what his he's portraying this character as, like, throughout the entire series, I'm like, it's not gonna ruin it, but, you know, again, it was just a minor little thing, but, you know, I think he really grew into the role as it progressed.
Oh, definitely.
Which, one positive thing that I was not expecting at all with his character is the fact that, like, it's not just, like, an origin story for Daredevil, which I love the fact that they made his origin, like, super brief, like, they cut straight to the chase, which I like, instead of just being like, okay, so half the season is gonna be him growing into, like, his heightened senses and blah, blah. It's like, no, I don't care. I really don't care about origin stories.
We've already seen that enough. We saw enough of that for one thing in Man of Steel, which is a different movie, but...
And even though Daredevil's a more, like, a lesser-known Marvel character, it's still the fact that it's like, just Google him. Just Google him if you really want to know his origin.
You know, it's not really something we're all that unfamiliar with. You know, getting custom powers and, you know, all that.
Or if you really want to, I mean, even the the bad Ben Affleck movie overall got his origin right, more or less. That's one thing you can give that movie, is his origin was, because it's simple. He becomes blind, he gets heightened senses, bam, there you go.
Yeah.
But it was also like an origin story for Kingpin as well. Because again, like
almost more so, really. Like some
yeah,
episodes you barely saw Murdoch. They were just like all about Kingpin.
Yeah, which I like that though, because again, like I feel like most series, whether it be like superhero or whatever, just any kind of series, whether it be like a TV series or movie or whatever, your main antagonist is just like pretty much like right off the bat they're evil, or they're they're the antagonist, because like maybe they like straight up kill someone in the very first scene, like they don't even say a word, they just like shoot someone's brains out or something. You're like, oh, okay, well that's the antagonist.
Or smash their brains out with a car door.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was like I was a little surprised, like when I watched the entire series, of how violent it is, which I love, because again, Daredevil is Disney. Which I think is more just kind of like Disney just helps produce it. They don't have a whole lot of say so in like anything else, which I love. Hopefully that's the case, because season 2, which we'll get into towards the end. But yeah, like I love the fact that like they really developed the Kingpin well, because you really sympathize for him. Like you're not so much rooting for him, but you at least see his perspective and his goals. He's one of the most sympathetic psychopathic killers I've probably seen since Walter White. Yeah, which I think that's the best kind of villain you can have, where you kind of, you either relate to him or you have sympathy for him, or you see they're not just like straight up like, oh, well, I'm the antagonist, so I gotta be evil. Because he actually had good intentions. He truly did want to make Hell's Kitchen a better place, but
he was just a well-intentioned extremist.
Yeah, which we just look at history and you'll see a plethora of examples of how often that goes wrong.
I mean, Hitler just wanted to build a Super Saiyan army to fight Frieza.
Never heard
stand by that.
Never heard it phrased that way, but
I stand by that.
All right.
I mean, I'm not saying anything Hitler did was right. He was clearly evil.
Yeah.
But when Frieza attacks, we might be saying, maybe there was something to it. Not that we should, start doing all that stuff again.
Yeah.
But, maybe there was a little something to it.
I also love, again, like the gritty tone. Because again, that is the whole thing with the street level heroes, is they are very grounded in reality, more so than other characters. And they are a lot more grittier because, They're not like Thor. They don't have a magic hammer like they mentioned in the show, or a suit of a suit with like repulsors and stuff like that. They kind of just use their wits, their hands, and whatever they can to clean the streets of whatever city they're in, which is
it's usually New York.
Yeah, usually always New York. I mean, I know New York's a massive city, but surely like Daredevil, Spider-Man, and Punisher and all them would like cross over more often. Like they would take down the same guy and be like, okay, well, I'm the Punisher, so I gotta kill this guy. And Spider-Man's like, well, hey, hold on. I placed a tracer on him first, so I called dibs. I don't know, but that's kind of beside the point.
They probably will cross over at some point.
Yeah, especially Punisher, which again, we'll get more into that towards the end of this. But I think Charlie Cox was a really good like middle ground between Daredevil and Matt Murdock, because
I liked him really well.
Because the problem with a lot of the heroes is you'll have like a really good like Peter Parker or Matt Murdock, but then they may not be that great of a Daredevil, or vice versa.
Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, like Andrew Garfield, I thought was great as Spider-Man. He had that really cocky attitude, but as Peter Parker, he was too cool and smooth, and he was
he's just like a hipster.
Yeah, and he was like a skater dude. It's like, no, Peter Parker is not like a cool, smooth hipster skateboarder. He is socially awkward and a loser. Like
Except for the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon.
Yeah.
That's awful.
I almost feel like if we went to high school with Peter Parker, we probably would have, like, maybe not beat him up, but we'd been like, oh, don't hang out with Peter Parker, man. That's like, even though our high school was fairly non-clicky, you could kind of just interweave between the different social groups. But enough about our.
And that's another thing too about just to kind of slightly branch off on Peter Parker, I don't think that Peter Parker exists anymore. So
no,
I get it, but the way they did it didn't work either.
No, but yeah, again, I think Charlie Cox, the actor, was a good middle ground. He played off Matt Murdock really well, and he also did Daredevil really well. And I also like the fact that it was very much in the vein of Frank Miller's Daredevil run, which is pretty much regarded as the standard, the best Daredevil run.
Before Frank Miller went absolutely nuts.
Yeah, which I think we've talked about that in previous podcasts. So feel free to just scour the previous. I don't know which one it was, but one of the previous podcasts. Just search.
Probably. I think it was the Batman versus Superman one, or one of our bitching and moaning ones.
Yeah, it was one of those. So feel free to check that out if you're a devoted fan. But yeah, like I've only read the first volume of Frank Miller's run, but just from that first volume, I was just like, oh my god, yeah, this is about as close as you can get to just, I mean, maybe not so much like panel for panel, like as close as you could get, but just like in the tone, the, like just the feel of the entire, like, first season was very, Frank Miller, Man Without Fear run on Daredevil, which is obviously what you want to strive for. And I think, season 2 is supposed to be more so, grounded in Frank Miller's run with Daredevil, which is even more promising. But what were some other things that you liked about the Daredevil series? Because I feel like I'm rambling on far too much.
Well, besides like everything, just off the top of my head, I really liked the way that they went about. Like, while it wasn't his origin story, they still grew the character.
Yeah.
From like being just kind of a low-level vigilante up to being an actual legitimized superhero.
Yeah, because in the first maybe the first half or so, like, I don't know, first like 4 or 5 episodes or so, he's just known as like the Devil of Hell's Kitchen. Before he actually gets a suit, he's just like the masked man or whatever.
It's really in that regard, I'd say Daredevil was basically, it's everything Arrow could be.
Yeah.
If Arrow wasn't on the CW.
Yeah. Man, that would do so much better, and it would be so much better on a different network. But that's a whole other thing.
You take the forced, like, contrived romance bullshit and drama out. You make it an actual show about these characters and their lives, and take all the teen drama type bullshit out. You've basically got, like, the potential for it to be Daredevil, but that's not going to happen. But Daredevil, it doesn't matter. Daredevil's awesome, and Arrow's just okay.
Which I think is another, like, just a testament to show how well done the show is. Because, even before, like, the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, not a whole lot of people knew of the character, which, like, in like, I guess, retrospect, I was, like, looking back at some of the superhero movies that came out before the, like, Marvel Cinematic Studio movement, I was like, I'm actually surprised they made, like, a Daredevil movie. And also the fact that, like, it had that negative connotation to the Daredevil name for the longest time. I know, like, when they announced they were making a Daredevil show, a lot of people were kind of like, I don't know, man, like, you saw that movie. It's like, yes, the movie was terrible. We all know the movie was bad. But Marvel...
Filmed on location in Hot Topic.
Yeah, but Marvel has the rights back. And you've seen what they've done with their cinematic universe. It's, like, even their weaker films are still really good. Like, they're like a B+ to, like, an A.
As much as people like to talk about Iron Man 2, really? If you consider... Like, if you don't consider every other Marvel movie, Iron Man 2 is still, like, alright.
Yeah, like, it's alright. It's by no means the greatest, but,
the greatest is Guardians.
Oh, yeah, oh my god, Guardians is amazing.
That was the first one I actually bought.
Yeah, oh my, yeah, but I think we've, like, talked about Guardians so much in past podcasts,
Never
but,
enough, though.
Yeah, we could make an entire, like, feature-length film on Guardians, but Yeah, feel free to check that out on Reverend Spaceman's channel.
It's probably a better watch than like at least half of the actual Transformers movies.
Yeah, I'll agree to that. But yeah, like I was saying though, I think it just shows, like, cause it is Netflix highest rated original series. Like, not only like the comic book readers, like even if they weren't a huge Daredevil fan, but the people like us, cause I knew of Daredevil and I liked him fine from what I'd seen of him in like the animated Spider-Man series, and
that's about all I knew really was that.
Yeah.
And he was in the Spider-Man video game.
Yeah.
Briefly.
And again, I kind of knew just like some of your basic stuff about him, but aside from that, I wasn't like one of those people where I could like tell you a whole bunch about the character and his mythos or whatnot. But people like, I guess, casual fans like us, because Dave and Jordan, they're big Daredevil fans. They've been like even before the Daredevil movie.
So naturally, we chose to do this without them.
Yeah. But more credit to show how great this show is, to where it took casual Daredevil fans like us, and now, like, after we watched all 13 episodes, so like I said, I binge watched, like, from episode 3 to 13 just today, and I took some breaks, but overall it's just kind of like one sitting, like, I'm off this weekend, I'm gonna get caught up on Daredevil finally, and sure enough, that's all I did today, for the most part, and I regret nothing, because it was amazing. But yeah, it just shows how well done the show is, to where a casual fan like myself, or even these non-comic book readers, or people who don't know really anything about Daredevil except for maybe the name, of, like, the character, are always, like, I've talked to people who aren't really comic book fans, like, maybe not, they don't read comics, or they're just not big into the comic book movies, but, they watch the Daredevil series, and they're like, oh my god, one of the greatest shows ever. Because, again,
like my friend from Florida that I was telling you about, she said to me that, as a person, she knew very little at all about Daredevil, and she really, really likes the series.
Yeah, cause it was amazing. It was incredibly well written, well done, and the choreography and the fight scenes. Oh my god, those were fantastic. That is some of the best choreography I've seen in fight scenes, like in probably any TV series, like hand to hand combat.
A lot of movies I've seen lately.
Yeah, even in a lot of movies I've seen.
Recent memory, like outside of Marvel, the only thing I can think of that had fight scene choreography that good and that engaging is like John Wick.
Yeah, John Wick I thought was a great film. Or like the Matrix trilogy, because I know like some people kind of like knock on the Matrix trilogy, mostly the second and third one. But it's like I like those movies, and the choreography and like the fight scenes. I don't think anyone can deny those were badass. And that's.
Yeah. No one's gonna deny that. Well, there's Keanu Reeves. I guess he's just
he does his own stunts.
He does.
But yeah, like the choreography in the Daredevil series, just like blew me away at like how well done it was, and it's not even it's like it's not over the top. It makes you think, oh wow, yeah, okay, I totally believe that he can do like a backflip and like. Kick that guy, and then, do all this other cool stuff and take out 5 guys at once before they can even draw their guns. So yeah, like,
They did a good job of factoring in the fact that, like, he doesn't just see straightforward, like, because of his hearing stuff, he kind of sees all around.
Yeah, and again, they do explain how he I guess, like, got the training to do that. Because in the movie, it was kind of just like, oh, well, basically, I just can see stuff with my senses. Which, yeah, okay, for a movie, whatever, that's a simplistic way of just explaining it.
Real people do echo, like, who are blind. There are real people who can echolocate.
Yeah. But I think, like, the way they did it in the show was so much better, not just because it was comic accurate, because, again, Frank Miller's run with Daredevil's when they first introduced Stick, who gave him the training, to, like, kind of, control his, senses, so I like that they added that as well, where it isn't one of those things where, because in the movie, like, in the Daredevil movie, he kind of just was like, oh, I'm gonna leap from, like, this building to the other, and hopefully I'll survive. We'll see. And then it's just like this short little montage of him jumping from like rooftop to rooftop as like a kid. He's just going, "Wee! This is so much fun." Which at the time I was just like, "That's so cool," because I was a young teenager. But I'm like,
well, because we hadn't been spoiled by good superhero movies.
Yeah, and also at the time I didn't really have a good concept of what constitutes as a good movie, so I was just going like, "Daredevil's amazing."
Yeah. I mean, there was a time in my life when I thought that, like, Jurassic Park 3 was a good movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that movie's got a lot of problems. It's okay overall, but that's, but yeah, like, back to Daredevil, though, again, I can't think of a whole lot of real negative things to say. Like, just that one thing with Kingpin at the beginning was really my only...
And that's a nitpicking.
Yeah, that's more nitpicking than, like, me being like, nope, that ruined it for me.
It actually got really suspenseful near the end when you just see how high up his influence is.
Yeah, and just, like, as you see his character go from, like, super just confident to, like, kind of getting to his breaking point. Like, the more, like when, the Russians, they have to take out the Russians, and then the Chinese and the Japanese, he's kind of losing control, but he's trying to maintain his, just his composure, but then it gets to the point where he's just kind of like, I don't even care, I'm gonna beat people to death, just because I feel like it. So I like that, progression in the Kingpin's character as well. Again, instead of just being like, well, he's the bad guy, so he's just gonna beat people up, because he's the bad guy. So I love the way they developed, like, even the lesser characters like Foggy and Karen Page.
Was awesome.
What?
They had a good chemistry.
Yeah.
Like, not romantic, but
there's a bit of a romance there. But yeah, they did have a really good.
Yeah.
They did have a great chemistry. The entire cast was great. After I just finished that, the first season, the more excited I am for season 2. Not just because of how amazing that first season was, but like when I think it was just like a week or two ago when they announced Punisher's gonna be in season 2, I was just like, "Yep, I'm sold. I am sold. I haven't even finished the first season. I don't care. I'm all on board." Because for those of you who haven't been keeping up with the channel, Punisher is my favorite Marvel character. So the fact that he's finally joining back he's gonna be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and hopefully they're gonna do him justice, which I'm pretty confident they will. Just because
I have no reason to doubt Marvel.
Yeah.
When they handle their own characters, they do it right.
Yeah. And again, like I think with the grittiness of Daredevil, with what they were able to get away with, I think they could definitely pull it off with Punisher. And what I think they're gonna do is they're kind of using like the Punisher as like a test character. Like they're gonna see how well he does in season 2, and if he does well enough, they'll be like, all right, let's make Punisher into a TV show. And hopefully they'll be able to be like, okay, let's keep pushing the boundaries and see how much more we can get away with. Because I would love to see Punisher, like live action Garth Ennis's run on Punisher, which is regarded as like one of the best Punisher runs because it's just so gritty, violent, down to earth, in your face with just dropping F-bombs and violence. Because that's what Punisher needs to be. It's not gonna. It doesn't need to be all.
That would be a good like since Fox is making Deadpool R-rated. That would be a good way for Marvel to make their first R-rated movie.
Yeah, and again, like as much as I love the movies,
they kind of play it safe.
Yeah, they play it safe, and it's I think it's kind of getting to the point where like I still people still enjoy the movies, but there's not enough just like
variety.
Yeah, like there's not enough variety. Like like I've mentioned.
That's actually why I was so glad Daredevil exists.
Yeah. And with this whole Netflix series, like you've got Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, Iron Fist. They're gonna be more gritty, down to earth. And I think that's a nice change. It's a change of pace and a nice fresh air. Breath of fresh air, because the movies, as great as a lot of them are, they're just more lighthearted fun. Whereas the series,
and I love that too. But I'm glad that they're kind of they're at least breaking that up with more human, kind of like you said, down to earth.
Yeah.
More violent, showing that people can bleed in this world.
Yeah, because again, like, pretty much all the other movies, like, if someone gets tossed through a building, they kind of just dust themselves out. It's like, it's just a scratch, whatever. But, like, in Daredevil, he gets the shit beaten out of him a lot.
Yeah, he bleeds.
Yeah, and he, like, it's not just, like, a little bit of blood. Like, no, he's, like, there are parts where you're like, how is he still alive?
Yeah, he'll be like, I love that, like, drooling blood thing they do, and they do that a lot, where he'll just, like, have to spit it out.
Which I think a lot of that was due to Stephen S. DeKnight, who is the showrunner of Season 1, who also did Spartacus, one of my favorite shows. Like, very violent, gritty, which I think he was, like, the perfect person to, like, essentially take the helm of that first season, which apparently he's not going to be the showrunner for Season 2, which kind of...
two other guys, but I think Marvel's handled, changing directors well enough. I think it'll work out. The fact that, like, the Russo brothers, who directed Winter Soldier, before they did Winter Soldier, I think their only experience was doing, like, sitcoms. Like, they wrote, like, episodes of sitcoms. The fact that they were able to do that and they go to Winter Soldier, which, arguably the best Marvel movie in terms of just, like, analyzing it as, like, a film, that's the best Marvel movie. Like, it's not my personal favorite, but... It is probably the best standalone since Iron Man.
Yeah. And now they're basically the head honchos and taking on, like, I think they're doing Civil War, and then they're doing Infinity War Part 1 and 2. So I think that's kind of going to be the same thing. So I think the popularity of Season 1 of Daredevil, so originally I don't think they were supposed to do another season until, I guess, maybe after The Defenders? But it was so popular, they're like, okay, no, we have to do a second season. It's got to come out by, like, next year. And I guess that didn't work with Stephen S. DeKnight. I guess with his schedule, so he was like, well, I can't do this. But hopefully, again, just the, what he's set as the tone and whatnot of, that first season, I think they're not going to change it and make it, like, a bit more silly and lighthearted, because that's not really what Daredevil is about. And especially...
I think they had enough moments of that to break up the gritty so you don't get tired of it.
Yeah,
Daredevil, but, like, Foggy was pretty funny.
Yeah, Foggy was the likable, comic relief character that, like, your average person can kind of relate to, because they're kind of like, okay, he's just your average guy. But also, like, they're obviously not going to do, like, a more lighthearted adventure.
No.
Since Punisher is going to be in Season 2, because again, Punisher is probably one of the most violent, gritty Marvel characters in their entire universe. So, and again, I can't stress how excited I am for Punisher, which I will say, like, John Bernthal is going to be playing Punisher, who was in the first 2 seasons of Walking Dead. He played Shane, who wasn't my first choice, but I think... I'm okay with that casting decision. Just because he's...
I know very little about The Walking Dead, but yeah, I can see it.
Because he got the right build for it, and just from the 2 seasons of Walking Dead he was in, he really nailed, like, the intensity of, like, a crazy psychopath person.
Well, I mean, half the cast of Walking Dead does that.
Yeah, but I think he really, like, he kind of set the standard, though. Because that was before, like, all the other characters kind of became that way. He was the first one to kind of be like, no, guys, we can't be our normal, we can't act normal in this apocalypse. We have to adapt and be, brutal and whatnot. So I think he'll really nail that intensity of the Punisher. Because that's just how Punisher is. Like, he has no remorse. He just guns people down. It's kind of like, well, that's one less scumbag off the streets of New York. And I love that. Like, how many of Punisher's villains keep coming back? Like, very few.
Yeah.
Very few. And that's what I love. Like, Loki, all these other villains, it's kind of like, Loki, you silly goose. It's like a slap on the wrist. Maybe they go to prison or whatever. Or, like, Asgard prison. But they break out. Punisher's kind of like, oh, I see you broke out. BAM! Blows their brains out. It's like, well, that takes care of that. Hey, Daredevil, you want to go hang out, get some coffee or something?
yeah, and I did kind of like Daredevil kind of trying to pull the no-kill angle, but a few people did die, As much as you'd like to really believe that Batman or Superman can save everyone, sometimes people are going to die by their hand.
Yeah, and again, like I think that's what made that what made Daredevil such an interesting character, not just like in that season, but like in the comics as well. Because again, in the comics, he has killed people, but it's like in extreme measures where he had no other alternative. And I like that with again in the show, he had that whole internal struggle where he's like, I want to kill Kingpin. That's like the only way to end this, but at the same time, he's like, I just can't put myself to like actually go through with it and kill him.
And he kind of went back and forth because sometimes he was like, I want to kill him, or like I know I need to kill him, but now is the right time. And then it's like now I need to kill him, but I can't bring myself. Those are good back and forth there, and I liked it.
Yeah, and it wasn't like too like I guess over dramatic, where he's kind of like, but I want to kill Kingpin, but I can't because that breaks my morals or whatever. I don't know why he's Charlie Kelly all of a sudden from It's Always Sunny, but
I want to kill this kid. I do want to kill this kid.
Goodness.
I gotta stuff some spray paint. Get the fuse, getting in the right mindset to kill Kingpin.
Yeah, but yeah, like I like that whole dynamic. Not just again like just Daredevil in general, like the character, but again the show just really they nailed it. But yeah, like oh my god, yeah, like normally like a lot of shows or movies like comics and stuff like that, or just movies in general, TV shows, like even the ones that are good, I'm like, okay, I maybe would have changed that or did that or whatever. With Daredevil, overall, I was just kind of like, I'm okay with pretty much everything they did.
Yeah, I was on board from start to finish, and there was not one moment where I was like kind of cringing a little bit.
Yeah, because again, like all the characters, like it took them like no time to grow into their characters to where they weren't like, okay, so what's my character do exactly? They're kind of like, okay, all right, I think I get the gist of it. Roll the cameras, I got this.
Yeah, and it wasn't like a DC thing, because DC does this all too much, where they get so caught in like the origin story days.
Yeah, and it's just...
they got it out of the way. They did it, and they made it. They still kind of made it a season-long origin story without actually doing that.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Like with any superhero, like whether it be like with a well-known one like say Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, don't do it. Everyone knows. No. Sure, there are slight variations, but we get the gist. Don't do an origin story.
I will say Man of Steel did an alright job, because we haven't seen a Superman origin in a while.
Yeah, I was okay with Man of Steel with their origin, because again, it wasn't so much like him being like the awkward Clark Kent like origin so much, but it was just kind of like him growing into the role of Superman, which I thought was a good direction.
Definitely.
But yeah,
I mean, in the credits, he's credited as Clark Kent / Kal-El, not Superman.
Yeah. And again, I think that was what made Daredevil so good, is because again, they didn't spend a whole lot of time in the origin because it wasn't really necessary. Just it's kind of they'd show it in flashbacks. They summarized it in like the first 2 episodes, and it's kind of like, all right, here's how I'm Daredevil. You get the gist, and now I'm gonna go fight people because that's what I do to save Hell's Kitchen. And you're like, all right.
I really liked the way they went about giving him his costume.
Yes, like I like the fact that he, like right off the bat, didn't have that iconic suit. He had the
yeah, because where is Ben Affleck gonna get just like a rubber rubber devil suit?
Yeah, they didn't explain that at all. It's just kind of like, oh, like I guess a blind man just yeah.
Yes, I just have this,
Yeah, or he went to like
whatever.
What?
Sleep in a coffin, whatever.
Yeah, and like he just goes to like Taylor. It's like, hey guys, so I want you to make this suit to this specifications. But by the way, if you ever see like someone similar to this suit roaming around Hell's Kitchen fighting crime, it's definitely not me, because I'm blind. I can't be fighting crime. But that's more or less how it was.
Just be like a Bruce Wayne in the 60s thing. Like, well, I support Daredevil with all of my money that I don't make, but it's not me.
Yeah, so I like the way he worked up to the suit. And again, just like in Frank Miller's run, where he started off with like just kind of the black like mask and the all black regular clothes, more or less, that he kind of just threw together. And then eventually was like, okay, I'm getting my ass kicked so much, getting like stabbed and cut and shot. I need better equipment to like make me not bleed so much.
Yeah, and then the way they kind of had him just like discover that Fisk had that suit and basically track down the guy. Like it wasn't just a thing. It's like make a costume.
Yeah.
One scene thing. It was like it was a part of the story how he got it.
Yeah, and I think again that made it more believable than just a blind guy learning how to sew, or all of a sudden going to a tailor shop and be like, "Hey guys, you want to make this?" I do cosplay. I'm a cosplayer, real big into that.
I'm cosplaying this superhero that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, but he will. Just give it time, you guys.
It's kind of like this is something Dave had a problem with, but I actually liked about the Flash series. They explained his costume as being like an experimental fireman suit.
Yeah.
Which, so that it wouldn't get, destroyed by friction.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And, it makes sense. I mean, it was kind of just tacked on.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough explanation to, like, pass. Like, you can nitpick about a lot of this superhero stuff, but it's comics, and comics can do whatever they want, and it gets kind of complicated, so it's like, it's easier to just be like, okay, alright, I'm cool with that. But again, with the Daredevil, like, getting his suit, that made a lot more sense that, like, it came from Fisk. He was just like, oh, I like what he's doing with his suit, but I want, like, a badass costume of that same material.
Got the devil in me.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, again, that really worked to the show's benefit to make that part of the story where, again, he didn't just make a costume out of nowhere somewhere.
Another thing I would just like to... I mean, at this point, we're really just kissing this show's ass, and it deserves it, but...
Feel free to sponsor us!
Yeah. Another thing I really did like, just a testament to how well this show was done, is that it did not only did it not bother me, but it actually... I thought it enhanced the character that he was Catholic, because usually that kind of thing, I'll be like...
Yeah.
That's unnecessary. I'm all militant atheist and shit.
Yeah.
I'll be like, that's unnecessary. You don't need it for the character. Like Superman went into the church. That wasn't really needed, but
yeah.
I think it really worked well for Daredevil.
Well, again, another thing is Daredevil's one of the few superheroes, like, in Marvel and DC that actually, like, his religion. All the others, it's kind of like, it's not really explained, like, it's kind of open to, like, they might believe in a god of some kind, but it's not, definitive as, like, oh, they're Christian, or they're Jewish, or they're, Muslim, or whatever. Whereas Daredevil, that is a...
Go ahead.
But no, like, with Daredevil, that is very much a part of his mythos and his character being a Catholic. Which, again, oddly enough, you would think, like, a religious superhero would kind of hinder him. But in a way, that makes it more dynamic and makes the character more interesting, where he beats people up, then goes to confession. It's like, oh, by the way, Father, I kicked the shit out of a bunch of low-level street guys. Does God forgive me for that? Because I'm doing good. I'm doing good. There are less druggies and junkies on the streets, so...
By Catholic rule, God kind of has to forgive him, because that's how he works. If you say sorry, he's like, okay.
It's like, sure, you bashed that guy's skull in with a bowling ball, but you said you're sorry. It's all good.
Yeah. And meanwhile, what I was going to say, I think it is pretty well established that Tony Stark is an atheist. Yeah.
Like, even if it's not one of those things where it's even been confirmed, like, in any iteration, like a comic or movie or whatever, I think it's safe to say that he's either agnostic or an atheist, just the way he, I guess, his mannerisms and whatnot, and I guess just his whole overview on the way the universe works.
Yeah, even after meeting, like, a bunch of gods.
Yeah.
That's probably, too, how I would have handled it. I'd be like, hey, you're not that kind of god.
Yeah.
I think, Captain America is probably a Christian.
Yeah.
But that line from Avengers is like, there's only one God and he doesn't dress like that.
Yeah. But also just the fact that Captain America is the, like, epitome of America, where he's just kind of like, truth, justice, and for all, and America, and then fireworks shoot off in the background. So yeah,
beer and Jesus.
Yeah, so I think it's fair.
Captain America needs to host his own beef and beer and Jesus.
I would, if that's the next Captain America movie, if they make any after Civil War, I would watch it if that's the premise. But yeah, I think it's safe to say that, like, he's some level of, a Christian denomination. But yeah, I think. And
he comes from the 50s.
What?
And he comes from the 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, so
back then it was kind of like, what's an atheist?
Yeah, if you were like an atheist, you probably got like Rockstone, and he's just kind of like, "Ah, you heathen bastard!" And then you were shunned.
It did almost happen to me in middle school too. But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing that we'll never talk about again on the podcast.
I'll talk about it when I'm on when I get on the Amazing Atheist channel or something.
Okay, there we go. So let's get that going for our good friend Reverend Spaceman.
Yeah.
Hashtag or whatever you do to promote stuff on the interwebs these days.
Yeah.
But so we're running about like 40-ish minutes. So I guess any closing statements before we wrap this up?
I'm looking forward to Jessica Jones, even though I know nothing about the character.
Yeah, I don't know anything either.
Just because it's closely tied to Daredevil, I'm like, I want more.
Yeah, and again, Marvel just further proves they can do whatever the hell they want with anything. So
even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like it had a rough start, I'll say, but it's gotten better.
Yeah, I actually was watching the first episode shortly before we started this review, which I know I'm late on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. I've got a lot of shows to catch up on, but I can go on another like review or whatever of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when I finally get caught up with that.
I'm working on season 2 now, so when you finish, let me know.
All right, and I think Dave and Jordan are caught up, or I don't know if they finished it, but I think they're caught up enough to where we could easily do a review or podcast on that.
I don't know if Dave is, but I think he kind of stopped watching. But I guess that's all we have to say about Daredevil then.
Yeah,
we're talking about S.H.I.E.L.D. now.
But feel free to follow Reverend Spaceman at Rev Spaceman on Twitter, and join in. Yeah, Rev Spaceman. We've got like a Twitter feud going on that has to do with our Jurassic World review. So feel free to check that out so that way you know the details. Shameless promotion.
I'm writing my pitch as we speak.
And I don't have Twitter, but you can follow me on Comics Amino at Irishman Jake and hear my thoughts on comics and stuff. It's fun.
Or follow at Pasty Pale Pro.
Sure. Pasty Pale Productions is our Facebook and Twitter, so feel free to like those. And if you haven't,
Dave runs I'm pretty sure Dave runs the Twitter.
Yeah, Dave is in charge of the Twitter. So if you have any problems, like give him all the hate.
Send all your hate to the Twitter.
Yeah. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed to either Pasty Pale or Reverend Spaceman, do us a favor, subscribe and share, like, comment, all that stuff, just because it helps us out. We're trying to grow as a, YouTube channels and just entertain.
We want to do this for a living so we don't have to work at gas stations and women's clothing stores anymore.
Yeah, so, for the love of God, get us out of our jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that wraps this up pretty well, so yeah. That's our thoughts on Daredevil. Hopefully you enjoyed, and again, I know it's late, but whatever. It's Daredevil's popular, you're gonna watch it anyways, hopefully.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, so until next time everyone, cheers.